Mark Hanlon said to me recently, and he's said it before, all business is about relationships.
Mm.
And the foundation of all relationships is trust. And, if you had a healthy culture before, there was a high level of trust between you and your staff. But now, it's a different situation.
What's up, Zach Oates here, author, entrepreneur, and customer relationship guru. Welcome to An Ovation, growth strategies for restaurants and retailers, where we find industry leaders to share their secrets to grow your business. This podcast is sponsored by Ovation, the actionable guest feedback tool that works on or off premise and is easy, real-time, and actually drives revenue. Learn more at ovationup.com. Welcome to another edition of Give an Ovation. I am joined today with the illustrious Henry Patterson, affectionately known as H-Pat. H-Pat, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. Good to see you, Zach.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know H-Pat, he's a 40-year veteran in the food service industry. He's run his own successful casual dining chain, and he's the senior partner in Rethink Restaurants. And he has consulted from groups to the size of the nation's largest manufacturers to single location restaurants. And really grateful to have you on today, H-Pat. First of all, to kick things off, why don't you tell us a little bit about what does Rethink Restaurants do?
Great. Yeah, Rethink today is entirely focused on working with operators, restaurateurs, and their teams, and encouraging them to employ some strategies that we have come to be quite passionate about that have to do with really including the team in understanding the business and participating in making the business succeed. And I did it for 15 years operating my 6 restaurants. Never occurred to me to really include the frontline staff in understanding the business level of the business. I regret it now, and I'm trying to make it happen for our clients.
And what's the benefit of that? What's the benefit of kind of bringing people into the know of what's going on? I mean, isn't that like private stuff? Isn't that stuff that only the owners need to know about?
Yeah, well, imagine you field a team in a sport, and then you tell them, "Oh no, you're not allowed to know the score. You're not supposed to understand what it means for us to win. Just do your job." And how the hell do you do that?
Yeah,
I mean, we did it for years and years and years, now once you see that, you can't not see it.
Well, because and I think that it provides a lot more ownership, right? It makes people feel like not just that
it's their business too.
Exactly. It's not just something they're clocking in and clocking out, but they actually care about it because they know what's going on. They can see how what they're doing is affecting the top line, bottom line, right?
Yeah. Not for, I will say for a lot of staff, that isn't what they need or want. They want to have a job where they can just come and do their part and sign out and go. That's okay too. But you can have a much bigger portion of the team really engaged and understanding the business level of what's going on and driving results in a way that's not possible when you don't have a bigger core group like we've been working with our clients to create.
Love that. So what is this? What do you call this concept? What's what do you train it on?
I think the most common terminology for it, which I have mixed feelings about, is open book management.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I have mixed feelings about it is because it immediately engenders an image of showing everybody all the financials and all that private information that you alluded to a minute ago, and that doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't relate directly enough to how people do their jobs. And in fact, it's intimidating for a lot of people when you show them, financial reports and so on. It's what we're up to is, I think, better understood as business literacy rather than financial literacy.
Mm.
which is to say really understanding how do we win? What does it mean for us to win? Uh, it may be getting a certain number of tickets per week is what we're defining right now. And what it means to win changes over time. So like for right now, let's say we want 1,700 tickets this week. That's what winning means. And everybody knows what that number is, and they're all looking at that number, and they know how they, from their vantage, can drive that number. But there's some real power in having one number that everybody's aware of and understands how the way they do their job could help to drive that number. And we
I
give them
love that.
and we want to see them have a stake in the outcome, so that if we get past 1,700 tickets, it starts to result in extra hours of pay for the participants on the team.
Interesting. And so speaking of like business and how that goes, obviously we have stepped into a new normal, right? And we will continue to be trepidously, treading this path over the next few years, certainly over the next year. What are your thoughts on?
It's going to be more than a year, Zach. I got to say that we have to take this really, really seriously, and it really does interfere with delivering great hospitality. I'll tell you a story. One of my friends went out to eat for the first time. I mean, I'm a little older. My friends are, many of them are retired. But one of my friends went out with his family for the first time since March. We're recording this the end of June. And he went to a restaurant where he had been many times before, and the owner was so glad to see him, and he came over to the table, and he was wearing a mask. But Bob said, I couldn't wait for the guy to just, Bob said, look, I'll send you a letter and bring you up to date. But he just was he did not want the guy hovering over the table.
Yeah.
We need to think about what it means for how we operate these businesses. We have to look at all of our assets and consider how should they best be deployed now, because we can't take for granted that the way we deployed them before is appropriate now. It's a new business.
Oh, totally. I mean, you think about, and here's the way that I've kind of looked at things. Over the last hundreds of years, right? In America, let's call it last like 300 years, right? Or Europe, America. There's been a certain pattern established for expectations at a restaurant, right? A consumer goes to a restaurant and they have a set of expectations. The restaurant knows what those expectations are. Based on the price, what to expect. And a lot of that had to do with the level of service, right? You go to a McDonald's, you're not expecting a manager to come up and do a table touch. Oh, how was everything? Were those fries cooked well for you today? It's like, it's McDonald's, right? You're going to get what you pay for. Now, if I go to a Smith Wolinski, I'm anticipating, the floor manager like better come up and ask me how my experience was. But we're experiencing this shift, right? Yeah. Where people don't feel as comfortable with that same touchy-feely, chummy hospitality, where things are changing. But so how do you maintain that same, what are the new expectations of consumers for restaurants? And I think the tricky thing is right now is that anyone who says, here's the rule book for the new set of expectations, I mean, they don't know, right? Nobody knows. It's an evolving thing. It's a conversation. As Danny Meyer puts it, it's a dialogue that needs to continue.
Yeah, very good. I think it clearly needs to be, and it's much more difficult. I mean, we put a lot of time into working with our clients on how to touch tables effectively when we were touching tables, because we don't have tables and like I just said, even if I try to touch tables in this outdoor patio, I got to keep my distance. I can't, and I got to keep it quick. I can't do what I did before. Right. I used to take a lot of pride in being able to really extract a lot of marketing information from the guests. Any night of the week, I could go into one of my clients and work the floor with them and learn a ton because I know how to do it. But I can't do it now, and neither can they. You know, if you worked expo, you could in a full service restaurant. I saw exactly what the plate looked like when it left my hands. The guests saw that same plate a minute later, and that runner knew how to present that plate to that guest, even which direction the plate, was turned, so that the guest had a certain vantage of when they first, your first taste is with your eyes. Well, think about what happens now. You're putting that dish in a box, and you're giving it to an Uber driver or a DoorDash driver or whatever. Who knows how long later, 40 minutes later, 20 minutes later, whatever it is.
And a
how
few
many
fries
times that
later.
box has been flipped over.
Yeah, the box is flipped over. There's a few pieces of the meal missing, right? Because
So the trust, I mean, we don't trust those third-party delivery drivers. We can't. So we don't really know what the guest is seeing. And they're not guests now. We don't know what the customers are seeing when they open that box. So we've been talking about getting our customers to the ones that we have the thing we develop what we call critical friends, customers who have become sort of part of the team.
Yeah.
And they're helping us understand what everybody's experiencing when we send food out now. So we're asking them, take a picture of what you get when you open that box and send it to me so we can see what you're seeing, because it doesn't leave my hands and go to your table now the way it did before. And for people in quick service, they've mastered the problem of exactly how they wrap everything and how it's all packaged and how it's all, because that's the business they've always been in. But for a lot of us, going from fast casual or from full service to this delivery business and takeout business, it used to be a very small part of the business. Now, for full service, for a lot of my clients who were full service, it was maybe 5% of their business. Now it's their whole business. So we've got to take the packaging way more seriously, and it needs to be sustainable and so on. But it also, we got to still make that food look as appetizing and as fresh as possible. We're taking some lessons from some of the Japanese operations who have really mastered this, and learning what we can as quickly as we can about how to present a great package, still present a great product, even though we're now in this distance relationship. The relationship with the customer is the most critical asset. If you don't know that, wake up. And the other critical asset is your relationship with your staff, which has also been, the trust that you established with your customers before and with your staff before has been decimated. Your people are risking their health coming to work.
Yeah.
Potentially they're risking the lives of their parents or their grandparents or even their own, if they're, if they have health issues of their own. They have to feel safe coming to work, or they're not going to do their job with the kind of verve, with the kind of enthusiasm that we want them to feel and we need them to feel.
Yeah, no, you're right, H-Pat. They literally are putting their lives and other people's lives in danger. And granted, while, quite frankly, they were before COVID for a variety of reasons, and there's all kinds of illnesses and things like that. The game has changed because awareness is increased, and there's something out there that is truly deadly, and it's hurting people. And so I think that you're absolutely right with that. And when you talk about how relationships with the customers and the staff are the most critical asset, how would you go about improving that?
Well, we have to reestablish the trust. Mark, I don't know if do you know Canlis in Seattle? One of the great restaurants in the country.
I don't.
Uh, Third generation operators now. Mark and Brian Canlis, the grandfather started. Mark Canlis said to me recently, and he's said it before: all business is about relationships, and the foundation of all relationships is trust. And if you had a healthy culture before, there was a high level of trust between you and your staff. But now it's a different situation. They have to really feel that you are serious about their safety and their health in order to come to work. And you got to check in with them about what will it take for everybody to feel good about this. And let's get real procedures in place and make sure that everybody is truly committed to them. And the same thing for the guests. I mean, they're not going to come in and be guests in our house anymore. They're going to be curbside or takeout or delivery customers for a long time.
Yeah, and HPAT,
and their safety needs to be addressed as well. They've got to feel comfortable.
Exactly. And that's something that we've looked at, and for our mission at Ovation is to enable businesses to measure, build, and maintain trust. Right?
Okay.
Because
can I talk about Ovation? I mean, I love Ovation for I think for all the right reasons. There's a reality that for a lot of people, especially people, frankly, for people I think over, 35 or something, they would never complain about anything. It's just not who I am, quote unquote. And this is one of the things that I became very adept at dealing with in touching tables and in training people on how to touch tables, is that you have to give people permission. You have to make them part of the team in order for them to be willing to say anything critical. Well, one of the ways that you get past it is by creating a little bit of distance. If I can provide some feedback by text, it's much easier, even for the critical, for what I mentioned before, our critical friends. It's a lot easier for them to give critical feedback if they can do it well, Ovation creates this platform. I don't need to explain it to you, but it creates this platform where not only are they encouraged to be in that dialogue with us, but we're also organizing and logging all that information so that we don't just address it with that guest, with that customer. When we can get that dialogue going in text, not only can we address whatever the issue might be with that particular customer, but we're also positioning ourselves to make the business improvements that we need to make for tomorrow's customers. Shame on us if we're risking customer satisfaction in the same way over and over again. Ovation helps us with this because we can see the trends in the feedback, and we can train based on that, or we can set up new policies or new procedures, new prevention techniques. We used to have soup in the server stations in my own restaurants. The servers could portion and present soups right out of the server station without ever involving the kitchen. Well, somebody needs to taste that soup continuously through service, because there is no chef involved. It's the servers. They have it and they're labeling it out and they're serving it, and it changes over the course of service. Once you have somebody say the soup was too salty or something, we can't let that happen over and over again. Somebody's got to taste the soup at various points through the night and make sure it gets adjusted if it needs to be. So that's just a mundane example.
But no, I think it's a great example, right? Because one of our mutual customers, Aceituna,
Yeah.
out in Boston, they've had numerous experiences where, for example, they noticed that in the afternoons, because of Ovation, they noticed that the chicken was dry in the afternoons. And so
Right. That's when all those complaints about dry chicken were coming at 2, 3 in the afternoon.
yeah,
And it's because they're on shawarma. And as the meal progresses, they're vulnerable to that. And if they're not paying attention to exactly what those late arrival lunch guests are getting, they're going to get those complaints. Well, they fix it. Our actually was one of our guys, Dylan, was the one who said, "Hey, why am I seeing this same complaint multiple times?" This is also gave rise to our insight that we really needed to spend time training the recipients of those texts. The managers who get those texts need to know how to optimize the opportunity that they represent.
exactly.
Not
Because,
just
it's
not
like
just try to mollify that guest's upset and get past it. It's like, that's not the point. The point is that there's
exactly.
real information here.
It's the whole Toyota Kaizen methodology, where if
Yes.
something goes wrong on the plant line, it's not a matter of, okay, well, let's put that door back on because it fell off, but it's a matter of, why did that door fall off, and let's prevent that from happening again and
Yeah.
solve the root issue, as opposed to constantly, putting a patch on a leaky roof. So you got to fix the roof,
Every
right?
complaint is an opportunity,
Yes.
right? Every complaint is information about our process that needs to be assessed, as to whether. So with Ovation, we capture it in a way that it doesn't just come and go. I mean, it gets logged, it shows up. And if people are trained on how to respond to that customer in that moment, they can optimize that. They can make it actually a memorable experience. That's the goal, right? Is to take every complaint and turn it into a memorable experience, not for for what went wrong, but for how much we cared, and how we were able to use. We want them to cherish the feedback.
And
We
and
want
to
our people to say, "Cool, we're getting really valuable information here."
and to
Not
feel heard and to feel appreciated, right?
for that customer to feel that that they've done something that was really helpful. That's that's one of my favorite things to say. I say, "Oh my God, that is so helpful to me. Thank you for complaining."
Yeah. Because
They
I
don't
recently
realize.
heard that, a really interesting quote. It said, "Every complaint is a gift,"
Yeah.
and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to put it. There used to be statistics. There was a book a long time ago called Service America, I think, that documented that something like the average business never hears from 96% of its unhappy customers. Uh, it's a crazy number, but
Yeah,
so if we can, if we, every time we make it easy for people to tell us something that was less than perfect for them, we can turn that into something that they'll feel really good about, having taken the trouble to help us, and we can learn something to continuously, to improve the business. And once the whole team understands that this is the game that this is what we're about. We're about Kaizen. We want to continuously improve, uh, and mistakes are good.
yeah,
Mistakes are.
exactly. And that's one of the things is, you don't want to have the mentality of, if someone complains, let's get out the pitchforks and find out who done it, right? If
Yeah.
someone complains, it's a matter of, let's celebrate that. Let's fix it. Let's be grateful that we heard it. And the number one reason that people don't share their experience, if it's not positive, is because it's too much of a hassle. The number two reason is it's too awkward. And so
Yeah.
what we do at Ovation is we create these tools that
Make it easy.
make it easy and create a little bit of a technological distance,
Yeah.
because sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, the way I explain table touches to a lot of the younger demographics, it's like imagine you just kissed someone and then you pull away and you say, so how good of a kisser am I? Right? It's like, it can create a little bit of an awkward situation. And so nowadays, the digital side of things, it makes it a lot easier to have that connection and to build that relationship, to have that dialogue. Because again, my background is growing up in the restaurant space. And then I got into, I became all about relationships, right? I wrote about dating and relationships. I published
Oh, no,
books
I
and
didn't know that.
articles. And so I come at this from a technology standpoint and a relationship standpoint with my background in restaurants, because I truly believe, like you were saying, it's about those relationships.
Yeah.
But like you started off our whole discussion, is that the rules are changing, right? We're in a shift where things are going to be different now, and they will stay different for a long time. And
Yeah.
we need to be prepared for that, to be even years, right?
Yeah, we can't just think that we're just going to get through this and get back to, the way we did things before. That's not real.
Yeah. So a question I had around all of this, because you had mentioned that training and that your employees are a big asset and training is important. What would you say to people who say training is really it's like a liability prevention? I want to check that box, but my employees are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's painful. I'm sorry, but our industry is, historically has been one of the worst for turnover. And I honestly, part of that is, admittedly, especially in a market like Boston where we live, that, we have 257 colleges here. And so there's, a lot of the restaurant staffs are college people who are going to go, they're only here for a while. So it's not like they intend a career. So that turnover is fine. I mean, I had a restaurant in Wellesley where I had Wellesley College women as the preponderance of the staff, and it was spectacular. I mean, we really had a great team. But the rest of that turnover is really because of people being mismanaged. Honestly, the industry is not professionally enough managed, and the jobs aren't designed to be jobs that people would want to do over time, because there's no skill building and learning and challenge involved in the way most of those jobs are designed. And if you think training is somehow just an obligation, you don't understand what your job is, which is to grow the people on your team. That's the job. And if you can grow them into real participants in the business, this is what we're advocating: is that you want to grow their culinary skill, you want to grow their hospitality skills, you want them to understand that even in this crazy COVID situation, we're still in the hospitality business. But it's a business, and there's a business dimension to it. If people understand what it takes to be profitable and how the way they do their job impacts both the experience of the guest, of the customer, and also impacts the profitability of the business. If they can hold both of those things at the same time, then they've become business people. They've become real participants in the business. And I think Ovation has been a great tool to accelerate people's understanding of the business, and we're about training them to use that information productively. I don't want to see people just use those texts to send somebody a $10 gift card and call it a day. I mean, that's just
and that's the old model, right? The old model is someone goes up to the manager, they complain, the manager comes out, gives them, comps that dish, gives them free drinks, and then guess what? Nothing changes, right?
Yeah.
All that you're just out a meal and drinks, and that's fine for that one customer. But two things you have to note: one, is that's going to happen again. And two, there are 26 people who had that same complaint that didn't bring it up.
It didn't say anything. That's right.
Didn't say anything, right? No, I love that, HPAT. So HPAT, who do you work with? If someone wanted to work with you, who would they be? How would they find you?
Okay, rethinkrestaurants.com is the simplest way to connect with us. And the answer to your question is we work with restaurant teams, whether they're quick service or fine dining and everything in between, where the leadership is really prepared to work with their team and develop their culture. If they're not interested in really making it a great place to work, as well as improving their profitability, that they're probably not our clients.
Yeah. So you're looking for people that care about the relationship with the employees and with the customers,
as well as their bottom line. And it has to be both, because the way that we drive that bottom line is by really engaging the team and teaching them to engage with the customers in a way that makes them into true business people.
I love that. So here are my takeaways, HPAT. One, open book management is what people call it, but I love how you define that, which is you define winning and then you use that to get everyone on the same page so they're all going after the same goal together. Two, yes. Take this pandemic seriously. It's not something that we can skirt around, because restaurants are going to be a source of either it's going to be the light that's going to help bring people together, or it's going to be the source of continued growth of this virus. So take it seriously.
Yes, unfortunately, that's real.
Three, I like your idea of getting kind of like a customer board of advisors of sorts, right?
Especially now.
Right. These critical customers, as you called them. I think that's a great idea. Every restaurant should have that. Find that group that really cares and let them share with you what's going on, such as taking pictures of their food. 4, relationships are all about trust. And if you break that trust, you need to repair that relationship. And then lastly, those relationships need to be had not just with the customers, but with the employees, because that represents your 2 most important assets in the business. Really appreciate you coming on, HPAT. Love this conversation. Love this discussion. Super timely, very important. And I think at the end of the day, the things you're doing are so critical to help not just make restaurants better, but help make people better. And that is the key, is allowing these employees to come in as one thing and leave as a better thing. And whatever that thing is, whoever they are, whatever they want to be, giving them the tools to improve and to grow and to develop, and along the way create great customer experience and allow that business to improve, I think is awesome. So for all of that, today's ovation goes to you, HPAT.
Thank you very much, Zach. Really a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Okay.
Glad you were with us today, and thank you. Thank you to the risk takers, the troublemakers, the crazies who are keeping this world clothed and fed. You're the ones who deserve an ovation. Again, this podcast was sponsored by Ovation. To see how we can help you grow your business, go to ovationup.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, remember to give someone in your life an ovation today.